I applied to over 50 jobs within a month and a half. Get creative in how you spend your time so you're not, putting too many resources in one basket. I had to prep in about 3 days and get it together. I was definitely nervous, but I think the biggest piece that I've expressed to folks is
I'm really excited to share my conversation with Jade today, who recently went from a career in real estate and broke into a market-leading tech sales company, Okta, in under 2 months. If you're trying to break into tech sales, you're gonna learn a ton from this conversation because Jade breaks down not only the action that it took to ultimately break in, but also how she did so efficiently, managing to apply to over 50 companies while still balancing obligations in her other career path. Additionally, Jade doesn't have formal tech experience, so we talk through how she ultimately did very well in final round interviews at technical companies like Okta. This is a super deep conversation, and Jade, we're obviously super excited for you. Congrats again, and I know everyone watching is gonna get a ton out of our conversation.
Hey everybody, really excited to speak with Jade this week, who just broke into Okta. Jade, awesome story. Obviously you made this happen really quickly too, something we'll definitely dive into. Maybe as a starting point for everyone watching, what was your background and what ultimately got you interested in tech sales in the first place?
Yeah. So my background is in real estate. I've been a real estate agent for the past 4 years, full time, and I absolutely love it. I decided to kind of make that switch into tech sales primarily due to they're not for me specifically. I didn't see the career growth opportunities there with the real estate. I have no desire to be a broker, manage agents. I had no desire to do 100 transactions a year and be a top producer. So there was kind of that ceiling to where do I go from here? So that's when I decided to pivot, see how I could use my sales experience that I have and still benefit from it. Found out about tech sales from higher levels from seeing, the YouTube page. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I could do this. I love the fact that there's career growth opportunities in like an array of options. And it doesn't hurt that it's still commission as well with the salary.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. And on that note too, it sounds like maybe you had researched a couple of things. You start to identify that tech sales is a good path for you. Did you do anything before joining higher levels, like trying to apply to places on your own? I'm curious kind of what led up to joining higher levels.
Yes, at first I was looking at things that weren't sales at all. I actually completed the Google certification for data analytics, and I was thinking about going that route. But after finishing it, I realized that I can't be in the office all day, not interacting with people. I love sales. Is there any way I could because the one thing about sales that I did not love, that was very much real estate agent specific, was that it was 100% commission. I had already been through a few ups and downs with the market, and thankfully I did well. I was able to make it through. I hustled, I made it work, but the ups and downs were just too much for me, especially with me looking to build a foundation to start a family soon. So I thought sales was completely off the table. That's when I looked into data analytics, realized not for me. My boyfriend actually mentioned tech sales. I was like, okay, let me look into it. And then it was the best of both. Still being able to do sales, interact with people, have that salary, get that commission. My work directly impacting how much money I'm making.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can definitely relate. I was not a fan of data heavy or programming heavy types of work. So I feel that. But no, that's awesome. I love how sometimes literally simple recommendations, we've had tons of people who, in your case, your boyfriend, I had a friend of mine, so many people just hear it from someone and ultimately here they are breaking into a great company. So I love to see that. Maybe throughout the process too, had you looked at, other programs as well? What kind of tipped the scales and made you think like, hey, higher levels is the path for me?
I didn't look at any other programs, honestly. I think I did Google. So I will say, okay, I did Google. I am like a research person. Let me see my options. I did Google what other options were out there. From what I'm seeing, they were either more expensive, mixed reviews. I wanted something that was a fair price for me to just try it out and see. And then also had the reviews and accolades behind it from who's teaching the course. I like the fact that both you and Chris were directly involved, hands-on, and it wasn't just me watching videos and taking assessments at the end, right? We have the weekly calls, we have the resume reviews, and then also the community aspect of it.
it'd be unique to pick your brain too, coming from that real estate world. Do you have some sales experience, not directly in tech sales?
Yep.
Like, is there anything about, the curriculum or the live calls in particular that was like, wow, this changed the game for me? This was the most valuable part.
Yes. So for me, I think it was really the templates that really helped me with reaching out on LinkedIn messaging, emailing, and also prepping the interview prep. Those were the ones that were the big. Also, the resume review, that was a game changer for me, not gonna lie. I think I started getting a lot of feedback from application, or positive feedback, when I was putting in applications after I revamped my resume and being on that resume call. And then specifically in the course itself would be those templates for outreach, and also the questions I would need to answer for interview prep.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I know, I feel like I talked to you on a live call, I think in like July. I know it's August at the time of this recording. And then it was like 2-ish weeks later, you're like, hey, I just landed at Octa's. Like, what the heck? Like,
yep, I know.
It's awesome.
It was a little crazy. It was so fast. And Okta was actually the very first company I interviewed with. And had quite a few other interviews lined up afterwards. But after the research I did, looking at RepView, looking at folks who currently work at Okta and seeing their tenure there and how they promote internally, and people have been there for years, I just felt really comfortable with that decision of going the Okta route.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, no doubt a great decision. And I'd love to probe in for someone on the outside looking in too. You mentioned a few great points there. So maybe a 2-part question, and we'll start with the first part. You got lots of interviews, you ultimately decide on Okta, but maybe someone on the outside looking in, what things did you do to get tons of interviews? Because I hear from a lot of students right now, they feel like the job market's a little thin. They're really struggling to get a conversation or two, but with you having multiple, is there anything that you did that really helped you stand out?
I will say, I believe the things I did were, during the course, being able to get that resume review assistance and knowing how to prep for interviews was key. Also, there is this AI has everything these days, right? But there's this AI website to where I can track all of the applications I did and kind of move them along in the process to see where they are. I applied to over 50 jobs within a month and a half. I got 5 or 6 interviews from that. So you can do the math on that, but just know you're still going to be applying and hustling. I would turn on alerts in my email. I'd make sure I'm applying first thing in the morning so that I'm not, at the end of the day, one candidate out of 150 applicants. I try to get in as early as possible. Also, looking up the companies that you're really interested in, right? So I didn't do a deep research on all 50 of those companies I applied to, but the ones I looked at and I was super interested in, if they had a good score in RepView, if I saw that they were offering the pay that I would be closer to accepting, closer to where my range is preferred, like I would do research. I apply on LinkedIn, I applied on the company website, and then I would see if they had a recruiter, hiring manager, or I would even reach out to the CEO of the company if I didn't find anyone else. Right? I mean, I was like, if they're expecting me to be an SDR, I guess I shouldn't be shy to reach out to whoever I can in order to get my foot in the door.
Yeah. No, I love to hear that. And I think, like, again, reiterating, like, you're getting 10, 15% interview rate, and yet you still got a great result. Like, this is the reality, regardless of the economy. Like, this is pretty standard, 10, 20, maybe when the market's hot, 30% interview rate. Like, that's the reality. And I'd love to see how much you attacked it. Didn't let any rejections bother you. So, major kudos there. Yeah.
Thank you. And I will say, go ahead.
No, you got it.
I was going to say, for the first 3 weeks of me applying, I was getting nervous. I was getting those rejection emails and I was like, oh my goodness, what do I have to do? But again, like I said, once I revamped my resume, that kind of changed the game a little bit for me.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe also now kind of looking at that later stage, like, obviously, as mentioned, you have sales experience, but Okta, pretty technical product to say the least. Not having that experience, did you have final round mock cold calls or presentations, and what really allowed you to prepare even without that tech experience?
Yes. So 2 rounds. First one was just, the typical recruiter call, just making sure you check off the boxes, making sure you're okay with the pay, with the comp. And then that second round, I actually met with 3 managers at once, all out of the DC office because they each were looking for SDRs on their team. And there was a cold call to prep for, which I had to prep in about 3 days and get it together. I was definitely nervous, but I think the biggest piece that I've expressed to folks is being prepared. Knowing that in sales you can make mistakes, especially in tech sales. They know not everyone's coming from this industry or have experience in this industry. You just have to be adaptable, be coachable, and be willing to put your best foot forward.
Yeah, no, I can tell you went above and beyond. And like, I love the approach too. It's not just that you did a ton of research, but you're also hedging your bets, like, and allocating your time properly. So you're researching the most interesting companies. And then as you get interviews, you're doubling and tripling down, not just like researching endlessly just because without even interviews in hand. So I love to see how you attack this process very efficiently as well. Maybe just zooming out, if there's anything maybe more broadly career-wise, someone on the outside looking in, or your younger self, any other advice you'd give to someone on the outside looking in trying to break into tech sales?
I would say utilize all your tools and always look to find new ideas of how you can approach things. So even when it came to the process of looking for a job, I was listening to podcasts, watching YouTube, join the higher levels, right? And through all of those, I got key tidbits. I was not a ChatGPT person, but once it came to applying, I was using that thing like crazy. I was like, what are the keywords that I should be putting in my resume that express the characteristics of a strong SDR, right? Or using that to just take the link of a company and say, give me a summary of what they do, what's their product, who their competitors are. And then, so I don't have to do 1,000 hours of research for the companies that I'm excited for or that I have an interview with. So get creative in how you spend your time so you're not, putting too many resources in one basket, and utilizing everything around you to gather information. That's really it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, I'd love to see how quickly you iterated as well, combining both like the resources available to you, but also just putting your hat in the ring, or I don't know, whatever the saying is, like as quickly as possible. I love to see it. Yeah. Well, this is really great. I know everyone watching is going to get a ton out of it. And yeah, Jade, obviously congratulations. Like Okta, a really great company. I don't want to gloss over that, and made it happen very quickly. Unless there's anything else, like thanks again for the time. I know this was an awesome video. So
no, nothing else. I appreciate you asking me to do this. It was fun.